Newsletters aren't just for big media companies. Regular people, people just like you, are using them to build authority, generate leads, and make serious money. I've worked with clients who use newsletters to generate hundreds of leads, grow their audience on autopilot, and even turn them into a full income stream. With AI, you can automate the entire process from finding the articles and the content to creating and scheduling the newsletters. And in this video, I will show you exactly how, so let's dive in. Let's say you write a fashion newsletter. The first step is to find relevant RSS feeds to constantly get new articles that you can summarize in your newsletter. Today, we'll use this RSS feed by Fashion Network as an example. Now let's create an automation scenario to fetch and summarize articles. We'll use the RSS module to watch for new feed items and process 3 at a time to avoid timeouts. Paste the RSS feed URL, choose where to start, and test the scenario to make sure it works. Next, add an OpenAI GPT module to generate snappy summaries in a structured format. The goal is to get a witty, sassy, Perez Hilton-style summary format. To achieve that, we'll give very clear guidelines in the system message, 5-10 sentences, 100 words, no extra commentary or headlines. If you haven't seen my video on how to make ChatGPT write in your own style, I will link it below. But basically, if your writing style is similar to a well-known author or journalist, then referencing it will help ChatGPT give a better result. In the user message, let's include the URL we want to summarize and a quick recap of what we're trying to achieve. We don't need to change the temperature or the completions tokens for today. Of course, this will depend on your individual needs and what you're trying to achieve. All of the prompts I'm using will be available for free in my school community. Link is in the description box. Feel free to use this prompt as a template, then tweak it to make it work for you. Now, let's test this. Perfect. Now that we have our text, the next step is to get images. For image retrieval, we'll use this Rapid API Google Images API. The API is quite affordable. It only costs $5 a month for 1,000 requests with no rate limits. To use the API with Make, we'll use an HTTP module. Copy the different headers you see on the screen. You will need them for API authentication. For the query, I'm going to use the article title. You can retrieve as many images as you want. I'm choosing to get 2. Then I'm adding the headers I have copied earlier. Finally, I'm going to add more info about how I should get the output. The more important thing here is to make sure that you set the parse response setting to yes. Let's run the module to see if it works. Great, we have our image now. The next step is to create the Slack bot that will allow us to receive new summaries directly in Slack and then approve them. To do this, we need to create an app and add it to the workspace you want to receive messages in. Next, we need to add Make's redirect URLs so that we can use the app with the Make module. Now, let's add the scopes. They will determine what actions the bot can perform. To determine the right scopes for your bot, you can check the Slack modules page in Make's documentation, which outlines scope functionalities and how they impact permissions. For us today, we'll need chat, write to send messages, channels, history, to access channel history, reactions, read to track approvals, users, read to identify users in the workspace, and app mentions, read to detect bot mentions. To connect the Slack module, use the client ID and the client secret that were generated when you created the app. Then all we have to do is add the text and the image to the message. Let's run the module to see if it works. Okay, as you can see, our message was sent. Now we'll add it to our Google Sheets, which we'll use to generate the newsletter. Before we do this, let's add a text parser to extract the body and the headline separately in the Google Sheets. I'm using a regular expression to parse the text. If you don't know how to write them, use ChatGPT to help you out. Finally, we can log the summaries in the Google Sheet. Here, what you need to pay attention to is the timestamp. You need to change the formatting of the column to plain text to get it in the correct format. Okay, we're finally done. Let's run the entire scenario to make sure it works. Amazing! We have our Slack messages and the entries in our Google Sheet. Alright, so here's the next bit. We're setting up alerts every time an entry gets approved in Slack, which means when a checkmark reaction pops up. The way to do that is to go to the Event Subscriptions tab, then Enable Events, and add a webhook URL. Okay, let's go back to make and create our webhook. We also need to add a webhook response module to approve the URL in Slack. Then head back to Slack and add the webhook URL. Right now, it doesn't work, but it's because we need to send the challenge parameter to Slack. Let's do that. Cool. Once that's all set, add an event to trigger the webhook, basically when a reaction gets added. And finally, you can remove the webhook response module and like an entry to check if everything's working. Alright, so let's kick things off by turning on the scenario. Now, go ahead and like an entry. Cool, that means the webhook is triggered. Alright, moving on. Let's update the info in the Google Sheet. We're using the timestamp to identify each newsletter entry, which is super handy. Next, update the approved column using the Google Sheet's Update a Cell action. Don't forget to save the scenario afterwards. Then head back to Slack and go ahead and like some more entries. Finally, let's check the Google Sheet to see if column D is filled. Awesome, that wraps it up. Alright, now we're moving on to making the newsletter. So, we're using a newsletter template with the new editor, which means we can't use editable content areas, a feature available in Mailchimp that lets you customize different sections of your email template without having to modify the underlying HTML code. This makes it easier to change things like text, images, and other elements in specific areas, but since we're not using that, we'll have to work directly with the HTML code for more control. But don't worry, you don't need to know how to code. I don't either. The first step is to make your template in Mailchimp. Then download the HTML template and open it in an online visual HTML editor like PostDrop to see which sections you need to edit. Uncompress the file for easier reading and figure out which parts you'll replace: the headline, image, and body. In my case, I set it up with two options, one with the image on the left and one with it on the right. Next, go back to your sheet and add the code for both image sections, left and right. Now, write an array formula to generate the code for each newsletter entry. It uses a substitute formula to swap in the headline, body, and image values. For alternating images, use an is-even formula. If the row's even, put the image on the left. If odd, on the right. I know the formula is a little complex, but you'll find the sheet with the formula and the different websites mentioned in my school community that you can join for free. Link is in bio. Switching gears, set up a new scenario in Make. Start by adding a Google Sheet module, searching for rows that are approved and not already posted. Next, we're adding an array aggregator module. We need it because without it, we would only be able to get one bundle at a time, which would mean creating a newsletter 4 times with 1 entry and not once with 4 entries. After that, we're adding a router with 2 routes, one to create the newsletter and one to update the already posted column in Google Sheets. In the first route, set variables like newsletter start by finding the start code using post drop, and do the same for newsletter end. To do this, let's go back to the post drop visual editor. It really makes it easy to see where each section is located. You can also use ChatGPT for this. To double check that you're getting the correct section, you can open another post drop tab, copy and paste the section, and check to see if it's the right one. Do the same for the rest of the newsletter. Let's run the Google Sheets module and the array aggregator to get values. We'll need it to build the rest of the scenario. We're aggregating the code column as we'll need it to build the newsletter, and the row number we'll need to update the Google Sheet later. Now this is where the magic happens. We're going to create a variable for the newsletter entries from the array aggregator. The newsletter always has 4 entries, so that's going to be the number of items in our array. After that, we can finally create the campaign module in Mailchimp. Here we're not scheduling it. You can, but from experience, it's better to double check before sending it out to all your subscribers. We're creating the campaign by adding the HTML content stored in the variables. Make sure to add them in the right order. Then, we're adding the Send a Message Slack module to let us know that a new campaign is ready. Before wrapping up, let's add a filter so the scenario only runs when there are 4 entries, and set it to run every Monday at 9 a.m. That's my setup. You can choose your own schedule. Finally, check Mailchimp to see that the newsletter was created, and verify on Slack that the message went out. Great! As you can see, we have the newsletter filled with the image entries, and a message has been sent to Slack. Made a mistake though. The newsletter ID instead of the newsletter name is sent. I have to correct that. Almost done. Last step, update the already posted column. For that, use the second row with an iterator to process each row individually. Don't forget to disable the first route as to not use unnecessary operations. Save and run to get iterator values. We have the values. Now we can add a Google Sheet module to mark each row as yes. Now save and run again, then check your Google Sheet to make sure the already posted column is updated. Awesome. We're finally done. Turn on the 3 scenarios and get ready to produce newsletter content on autopilot.
So if you found this useful, make sure to hit the like button and let me know in the comments what kind of newsletter you're going to start. Also, join my free school community, link is in the description box, for more exclusive AI workflow, hacks, and to find all the resources I mentioned in this video. See you in the next one. Bye.